Henry Cavill will always be remembered for playing Superman or Geralt of Rivia, but his best role came as a beloved detective from literature. Cavill has made a career for himself as hunky action heroes in various blockbusters, and he is still one of Hollywood's most consistent hitmakers. While films like Argylle were misses, it certainly wasn't because of Cavill. He brings a passion and commitment to lead roles that isn't often seen from conventional action stars, and he has the acting chops to back things up too. Recent movies like The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare showed off his funny side, and it's expected that Cavill will fall into more diverse roles in the future. His tenure as Superman was somewhat brief compared to those of other actors in superhero roles, as was his time on Netflix's The Witcher. Perhaps it is that scarcity that helps make Henry Cavill one of the most sought-after actors today, and he's rarely in 1 or 2 movies per year. Though Cavill has reached leading man status, and has been there for years, he turned in his best performance in a supporting role. Rarely without the spotlight, Cavill not only proved that he could play second fiddle to another actor, but that he could take a character that's been played dozens of times and give him new life in a modern movie. Henry Cavill's Voltron live-action movie gets major filming, and release update. Related. 5 times Henry Cavill deserved better. Henry Cavill is one of the unluckiest Hollywood stars around, with many of his projects flopping, recasting him, or straight-up kicking him out. 12. Henry Cavill is at his best as Sherlock Holmes. Cavill nearly steals the show in the Enola Holmes movies. Despite years of playing lead roles in major movies, Henry Cavill took a surprising turn when he showed up as Sherlock Holmes in the hit Netflix movie, Enola Holmes. The Millie Bobby Brown vehicle casts the Stranger Things star as Sherlock's younger sister, who is also an intrepid detective trying to step out of the shadows of her famous sibling. Sherlock is a different type of character from what Cavill usually plays, and he proves himself to be deft at inhabiting a part that is wholly unique from his usual fare. Though he is a supporting character in both Enola Holmes movies, Sherlock has enough screen time to make an impact. This is due in large part to Cavill's performance. Cavill isn't given much action, and instead is able to show off his acting skills in the fun and fast-paced mystery series. He understood the slightly anachronistic tone of the subject matter perfectly, and there's always a slight wink to the audience coming from Cavill's Sherlock Holmes. However, he doesn't overdo it either, ceding a lot of territory to Brown. It might not get a lot of praise, but it isn't easy for an actor to light up the screen while also not overshadowing co-stars who are supposed to be the real focus. Sherlock is a peripheral figure, and Cavill uses every moment of screen time to elevate the project instead of simply shining the spotlight on himself and leaving. Cavill's Sherlock is just different enough to stand out. His Sherlock works because of what he doesn't do. Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes holds a magnifying glass in a scene from Enola Holmes 2. There have been tons of actors who have played Sherlock Holmes over the decades, and it's always a challenge to bring something new to a well-worn icon. However, Henry Cavill manages to find a new wrinkle within the Sherlock character largely by what he doesn't do on screen. He doesn't borrow from previous interpretations, and is much more human. Arthur Conan Doyle described the character pretty distinctly, and each performance tends to fixate on 1 or 2 details. Cavill instead opts to play the case-cracking super genius as subdued, with only small glimpses of the roiling nature beneath the surface. He isn't particularly witty or bombastic, which makes sense for how the character would be seen through Enola's eyes. He's her brother, so all of his strange mannerisms would seem quite normal from her perspective. Also, since Sherlock isn't the focus of the films, viewers are intentionally only given a slice of his life. The small pieces are quite intelligent, including references to his substance abuse issues, and the machinations within his head as he solves cases. Enola's relationship with Sherlock is a highlight. There is a genuine connection between the two. Henry Cavill as Sherlock talking to Millie Bobby Brown as Enola leaning against a tree in Enola Holmes 2. Sherlock Holmes is notoriously prickly and difficult to get close to, but Enola Holmes and its sequel softens him somewhat. The second film is an especially strong example of Cavill's acting abilities, and he spends a lot of the film working alongside Millie Bobby Brown as a co-star. Since Enola Holmes is not directly based on Doyle's work, but is instead from Nancy Springer's books, the movies take some liberties. Sherlock and Enola's relationship is somewhat chaotic and fraught, but it feels like a real sibling bond instead of 2 caricatures clashing in every scene. Cavill might not look the part exactly, but he brings the human element. Henry Cavill is set to return as Sherlock in Enola Holmes 3. The beloved detective will be back for another case. The status of Enola Holmes 3 was in the air, and it stayed murky even when the project began to take shape. However, in April 2025, it was confirmed by Variety that the charming young detective would be back for a third adventure. Millie Bobby Brown was the most obvious return, but she'll be joined by her familiar co-stars too. Perhaps the biggest name on the list is Henry Cavill, who will be back as Sherlock. He'll be joined by Louis Partridge and Helena Bonham Carter, who are reprising their roles as Tewksbury and Eudora Holmes, respectively. It's unclear how much Henry Cavill will appear, but he has an opportunity to build on what is already his best movie role.